Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this super cute and very easy beret hat. This is going to be a lot easier than the bucket hat that I showed you guys how to make a few months ago. And I will have the pattern on my blog where you can just download the pattern and you won't have to measure and make your own pattern because I know that's a little stressful and I want to make this more accessible to people. So we'll just get right into the video and we're going to start with what materials you need. So here's just a little list, a graphic list of materials. You'll first need some pins, of course, some thread as well, a sewing machine, your fabric of choice, a measuring tape if you want to measure your head, some scissors, and an iron. So again, you can find this pattern on my blog, so that will be linked down below in the description box. But here you can see I'm kind of moving the pattern around my fabric because I have this really cool leopard print wool that I bought like 5 or 6 years ago for this suit jacket that I made. And I'm just pinning this on the fold, and I'm using my rotary cutter because it's a lot easier to cut this out. And you will just need one of the solid half circle and then one of the like half kind of semicircle. That's the brim. So you'll need one of each of those that are cut on the fold. And of course there'll be seam allowance. The seam allowance on these is 1/2 inch. And I'm just cutting off the excess. So now I have my pieces facing right sides together. I have the cutout side on top, and I'm just going to pin all the way around the outside of the circle. And I also am doing a lining. You don't have to do a lining, but I will show you how to do that in this video. And I'm just going to do the same thing with the lining, just kind of pinning it on the top, the bottom, and then on the left and right side. And then you kind of just pin in between all of those spaces so that it's a lot easier to sew, because sewing a circle is not as easy as I thought it was. It takes a bit of time and it was a little stressful. So here I'm just doing the same thing with my lining, and this is actually the same lining that I used in the suit jacket that I made with the wool that I'm using for this beret like 5 years ago. So that's really fun. Um, This the fabric that I'm using for the lining is 100% silk, and it's this beautiful cherry blossom pattern. It's so pretty and it's so slippery, so I had to use a ton of pins for this part. All right, so now that we're finishing up the pinning, I'm going to show you what you're supposed to sew for these. So for the outer part of the hat, the fashion fabric, you're going to sew all the way around in a complete circle. For the lining, you're going to stop a few inches before where you started so that we can flip the hat inside out when it's all done. So here I'm just sewing the lining. Again, this took forever because it was so slippery, but just take your time and pin as much as you need to, trust me. So now that we have everything sewn, and you can see here I did some clipping, and this is the hole that I left for my lining. So you're going to take your scissors, and on both the lining and the fashion fabric, you are going to just snip up to the stitching line, not all the way through, but just before, like a millimeter before it. And you're going to do that all the way around the fashion fabric and the lining, just so when you flip it right side out, it opens a lot easier and you don't have all these weird harsh lines where it's just supposed to be a circle, if that makes sense. Try flipping it right side out before you do this, and then do this and you'll see kind of the difference. But here now we're going to be pressing the fabric, and you're just gonna try to push the fabric out as much as you can against the seam and press. So lift and put down the iron. Don't kind of move it around, that doesn't work. So now we have the hat, the outer fabric right side out and the lining right side in, and we're going to stuff the outer part of the beret inside of the lining. And then you're going to pin the inside circle where your head goes in. You're just going to do the 4 corners and then pin in between those. Kind of like how we sewed the lining to the lining itself and then the 2 outer pieces together. The sewing of this was also a little difficult, but just take your time. It was a little finicky, and you can see here, like, you can't really see what I'm sewing, but you can see how I'm moving the fabric around and trying to get it under the machine because the circle for your head is a little small. So Yeah, it does fit, don't worry, but it is a little finicky on the machine. So now that it's all sewn together, we're gonna find that hole we left in the lining, and we're just gonna pull that outer layer or fashion fabric through and then just kind of stuff the lining inside of that. And we're just going to kind of fold that lining against that seam allowance that we sewed where the join of the lining and the wool hat meets, and we're going to fold the lining back as much as we can and top stitch. You can kind of see here I'm folding the lining back, and you're just going to top stitch all the way around the circle. And here's what the hat looks like, super cute. And we also have that hole that we need to close up if you used a lining. So I'm going to show you how to do that really quick. So you're just going to find that hole in your lining, and you can just sew it straight across. Honestly, you can sew it in a circle, that's fine too, like following the circle pattern, but just tuck those raw edges inside and just sew a straight seam across. If you sewed a lining, you also might want to put a tack with some thread in the middle of the outside of the fabric and on the inside on the lining, just kind of like holding those two pieces together so it doesn't flop all over the place. And here's the finished hat. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. It is super easy and you can do it in one day or 2 days, like on a weekend or something. And again, the pattern is on my blog. You can go download it there. And yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed this. It was super fun. I'm glad I used up some of my scraps for this because I've had this fabric forever. And if you liked this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. Leave me some comments below if you have any video suggestions. And definitely subscribe if you're new, and I will see you next week in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.